Scootaloo took a few steps backwards in the darkness and acted surprised. Preparing for the trapdoor to open underneath her, she dropped down with great agility as the floor disappeared and landed in a sort of metal cage a few feet lower. A cloud of dust was blown out from the mine entrance above her as a metal press came down to fill the mine and cover the entrance. Scootaloo knew that to the audience, it wouldn't look like metal at all, as they had decorated the outside with what would appear to be stone and rocks to them.
Oh! She grimaced as she landed, the bars on the bottom of the cage biting into her hooves. She looked down and frowned. There used to be a large piece of wood covering the bottom of the metal cage, but it was nowhere to be found. There was a great round plastic tub underneath the cage, which Scootaloo couldn't remember seeing before. Then again, she mused, the wooden plank would naturally have kept it out of sight.
She quickly tugged on a few key strings in her outfit with her teeth, undoing the knots one by one. Since these knots kept the entire outfit together, it wasn't long before she could simply shake it off. It looked very cool, but it was was uncomfortable to move around in. She decided to just leave the outfit there for now. After all, she wasn't able to go back to the dressing room until the show was over. Sure wasn't dragging it around with her.
She reached out to the cage door and attempted to push it open, but to her great surprise, it wouldn't budge. She pushed against it for a while and then threw her shoulder into it, which she instantly regretted, but still, it would not open. Turning around, she bucked her hind legs at the door in an attempt to force open the lock, but she may as well not have bothered. All she ended up doing was sending some banging noises echoing throughout the area.
Oh, door. If I find out who locked this thing, I'm gonna hiss in frustration. When Cheerilee suddenly emerged from the darkness, Scootaloo's head about level with hers.
Cheerilee simply smiled at the filly as she approached the cage, not saying a single word.
Miss Cheerilee? I wasn't going to say anything bad, honest. Just I'm going to be very upset with the pony who locked the door, that's all, she said sheepishly. At least Cheerilee would probably be able to get her out of there.
She started to feel somewhat uncomfortable as Cheerilee just stood there unmoving, her features still obscured by the darkness that reigned supreme under the stage.
Oh, I get it. It was a joke. That's great, Miss Cheerilee. You obviously haven't so let you touch the friend. Now, could you please let me out? The young filly asked, pleadingly, not sure what to make of the mare's strange behavior.
Cheerilee nodded enthusiastically and stepped forward with a wide, toothy grin split her face. Something about the look in the teacher's eyes shocked Scootaloo deeply. It felt as if she saw nothing but hatred and contempt in those big green clothes. Cheerilee reached out for a lever on the wall and pulled it down slightly. And suddenly, the mass of metal above Scootaloo's head started to inch its way downward at a steady pace.
The little filly suddenly didn't feel comfortable in the cage anymore. She let a little squeal of terror. Wait, what's going on? Please stop. This isn't funny anymore. Miss Cheerilee, I want to get out. Let me out.
Cheerilee brought her face close to the cage to stare at Scootaloo, relishing in the terror she was inflicting upon one of the little monsters that had tormented her for so long. I thought you wanted to get out of the cage. This'll get you out, you little weed. Just watch.
Scootaloo's brave facade finally broke as tears started streaming down her face. No, you can't do this. Everybody will they'll find out. Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle, they'll come looking for me and...
Cheerilee interrupted the frantic filly as she burst into genuine laughter. You fool! Those friends of yours are next. And as for the others, you let me worry about that, okay? You have different problems. Cheerilee nodded at the wall of iron, still inching down, with now less than half the original amount of space left between it and the bottom of the cage.
No, the little fairy screamed as she lifted her front legs above her head, pushing up against the metal, threatening to crush against the bottom of the cage. The press protested with some metallic screeching sounds and shuddering for a moment, and then almost came to complete stop.
With the machine pushing down on her and her pushing up to hold its progress, the pressure on the hooves that remained on the bottom bars of the cage was immense. She whimpered as the thin, rectangular metal strips slowly started to crack them. But she didn't dare move for fear of being crushed. The machine did not relent, and the cracks grew wider and wider, making her pant with pain as Cheerilee stood and watched.
So they can lift up things with their hooves. But they're only real hooves when they want to torch
Yeah.
Finally, she let out a scream as her hooves broke and the thin bars got driven up into her flesh. Blood slowly started to boil up around the metal and dripping down into the tub underneath. Scootaloo bit down on her lower lip as she panted from the immense pain that was washing all over her as the blunt bars broke her skin, tearing and pulling at her flesh.
Ow!
So, wait, I'm confused. Is she standing on spikes in the bottom of the thing? Like,
No. It's a metal cage, right?
Right.
But there's no floor to the cage. It's just more metal cage. So there's more bars.
Oh, okay. All right, I get it. All right. Anyway, please, stop. Please, I'll be good. I swear. She managed to get out between the gasps for air and the cries of pain that otherwise escaped her mouth.
8 months. 8 months, Cheerilee suddenly screeched in fury, rapidly switching over from laughter to anger in the blink of an eye. That's how much time you had to show a glimmer of intelligence as you failed. In a fit of rage, Cheerilee pulled down the lever a bit more, and the metal press instantly started to push down even harder, trying to crush Scootaloo even faster. For the good of all flowers in the world, weeds like you must die.
Scootaloo tried to cry out as the metal bars were driven through the fleshy parts of her hooves, the metal angrily coming to a grinding halt against the bones in her legs. Ow! But instead of screams, all that came out of her mouth was a disgusting gurgling sound, followed by waves of bile and vomit as the unearthly pain turned her stomach upside down and nearly made her black out on the spot. The foul and sour substance splattered all over the floor of the cage and dribbled down Scootaloo's body from her mouth, joining the streams of blood, not the screams of blood, though I guess blood can scream now.
It's not the thing.
Yeah.
As they tumbled into the tub below. I'm so glad I ate before we started reading this. Yeehaw! The only thing keeping her conscious was the copious amounts of adrenaline her body was pumping into her system in a desperate attempt to try and survive the ordeal. Want to play a game, Scootaloo?
No, that comes later.
Cheerilee took a few quick steps back as the vomiting started to avoid getting it on any of her hooves. That'd be simply distasteful. The machine continued pushing Scootaloo down, and she already had to bend slightly forward as she began hysterically pushing up with her shoulders and head as well, grinding her hooves into the metal below even more. Her legs shook violently, and she knew that they would be unable to take the pressure much longer.
I'd like to take pain for 300, Alice Trebek.
The bars of the cage floor ground against her bare bones as they slowly began to crack. Scootaloo screamed in wordless terror, pain, and hysteria once more. Her mind filled only with the red, hot feeling of pain, emanating not only from her heavily mutilated hooves, also the rest of her body. Her throat was raw and coarse from all the screaming and vomiting. Blood dripping down the corners of her mouth, and her upper legs, shoulders, and neck were all feeling the strain from pushing up against the metal.
Some of the strain became too much for her little pony legs as the bones in her hooves snapped.
Ow!
The metal strip shot down through her legs as the metal plate pushed her down, cleaving through her young, soft flesh like butter, and splitting her overstressed bones neatly in two. The new pain, 100 times worse than all that had come before, sent her into a new fit of vomiting. By all that would come out was a puddle of blood that she spat all over herself.
Her body couldn't handle the sensory overload, and she teetered on the brink of a blackout. But every new bone that snapped pulled her right back out of the sweet embrace of darkness, and the blunt metal bars shot up through her so fast now that there was hardly any time to fall unconscious at all.
I'm sorry, that was so fucking... the sweet embrace of talking. Alright, professional here.
We're professional?
Yeah. Blood splattered down into the tub where it pooled into a lake alongside of various other bodily fluids, with more blood leaking out of Scootaloo's legs as if she were an opened bottle of tomato juice someone was holding upside down.
No, Jake, you go. The room swam before her eyes, and she was too weak to continue screaming. Her forelegs started to give out and would soon lose their strength, but she started to drift out of consciousness in earnest.
It's only after what seemed to Scootal was a century after the metal had broken through her first bone, although it was in reality only a few moments, the metal plate stopped pressing down and actually moved back a little bit as Cheerilee pushed the lever up, an insane look of glee on her face.
Scootaloo, now unable to brace her weakened body against anything, as the metal plate slid out of reach, tumbled backwards and onto the bottom of the cage. The metal bars were still stuck halfway up her legs, holding them in place. Her weakened legs couldn't handle the strain as she toppled backwards into a physically impossible position, and with a horrendous scream and torrents of blood, Scootaloo's legs simply broke off in the middle. Ow! Muscles and ligaments tearing off of the bones, and they broke right around the weak point the metal bars had created.
She had thought the worst pain had been over, but for a second time in a few minutes, she had been proven wrong. There had been a pain worse than what she had been going through, and this was it. She almost barfed up blood all over herself again when she looked down at the part of her mangled legs that were still attached, as well as the little bloody stump sticking up above the cage's floor. But she simply didn't have But she simply didn't seem to have any in her anymore.
Her body had grown pale due to the copious amounts of blood she had lost and was still losing, and she'd probably die within the next few minutes, even if a fully equipped medical team appeared on the scene. And then there...
Cheerilee stood with her left hoof on the lever, panting heavily and shaking with pure excitement, extremely really unable to keep the ecstasy she felt at her twisted dreams finally come true out of her voice as she spoke. Any last words, my little weed?
Scootaloo could hardly hear her thoughts, her through the ungodly amounts of pain she was in, as death started to wrap her in his cold embrace. Her body had lost so much fluids by now that she couldn't even manage to cry, as she thought about what she'd like to say to Rainbow Dash. Like being sorry that she'd never grow up to be the flyer Rainbow Dash thought she could be. Instead, all that came out of her mouth was a low gurgling and another pool of blood.
I guess not. Who'd want to hear it anyway? Cheerilee yelled almost hysterically as she pulled the lever completely down.
Pull the lever, Crunk.
Hit the button, Frank.
Beam me up, Scotty.
No, okay.
Kinda? Alright, go.
Oh, yeah!
Where's the beef? Okay.
I am Spartacus. Shit, no.
The little filly saw the metal plate storm down at her like a battering ram, her body too weak for a bigger reaction than her feeble attempt to raise her front hoof up to shield her head. With a sickening crash, the machine pounded down into the filly, driving her entire body into the bars below. She kind of looked like the Play-Doh spaghetti factory.
I guess now we serve this to Mama Panda's children. If she looks like SpaghettiOs.
Oh god, oh fuck.
Now,
Sorry, Mama Panda.
The crash was so sickeningly loud, even Cheerilee closed her eyes and turned her head away for a moment as she brought up a hoof protectively. She could feel the warm blood spat on her face and body, and open an eye tentatively. The metal press now filled the entire cage, and Scootaloo was nowhere to be found. Blood spatters could be seen in a wide radius around the cage, and blood dripped down the side of the tub to make puddles on the floor. With her legs shaking with excitement, Cheerilee approached the tub, taking care not to step into any of the puddles.
she made a puddle herself.
She pretty much is a puzzle at this point.
For a moment, she just stared down into the sanguine lake, amazed that there had been so much stuff packed in the tiny filly's body. Various chunks of flesh and bone float around the grotesque sea like tiny boats. Cheerilee angled her head to look at the bottom of the cage, saw little bits and pieces of Scootaloo still trapped between the metal plate and the bars of the cage. But apart from those and the huge scarlet stain on the metal, no sign of the filly ever having been in the cage remained. It was a magic trick.
How do you know sanguine but not porcelain?
Brain
Porcelain.
cell. Brain cell don't work sometimes.
Norm.
Shirley licked her lips while surveying the scene once more, but suddenly stopped as the bitter taste of iron entered her mouth. She had forgotten she had got blood all over herself as well, but it tasted surprisingly good. This must be what they meant when they talked about the sweet taste of vengeance. Shirley mused as she licked her lips and cheeks clean.
She spotted Scootaloo.
She's a vampire.
Not a very good one.
That's say like Nicolas Cage. The vampire. The vampire.
I'm a vampire. I'm a vampire.
She spotted Scootaloo's eyes floating around in the lake of blood, staring up unseeingly at the ceiling. She couldn't help but crack up and laugh hysterically. Even as she went to get cleaned up. Even long after she got the very last splatters of blood out of her coat, the visible ones anyway. She just couldn't stop. She hadn't seen something this amusing all year. Yes, murder! Yay!
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 Woo!
Party!
To shake around. Yeah! Cheerilee finally got back to her spot, Crump's corner. She, still giddy with excitement, she stared at the stage without really seeing it, and it took her a few moments to notice that she hadn't started paying attention to the play at all yet. She was still just savoring Scootaloo's last moments in her mind's eye.
How big is like this under stage area that she can go do this and make all this noise and things and then come back.
It's a troll gore fic, shock fic. Don't look
I
for it.
know,
Try to
but
imagine.
It's big enough for a man in a cape with half a face to hide an organ and a boat.
okay, so we're talking like Phantom of the Opera secret entrances and the whatnot here. Okay.
I suppose so.
I just imagine the janitor just comes down there just like shame shit every night.
Look, gotta mop up another killed kid. Oh, God.
The eyeball floating in the pool is this. I don't even know it.
5th time today. Damn. I gotta get another job.
She shook her head a few times to get a grip and focused on the stage in front of her. Once she did that, it didn't take long for her to figure out what scene they were currently on, and Cheerilee had to suppress another rush of excitement as she realized her next playtime wasn't all that far off.
She shook her head a few times to get a grip. She's lost her grip. She can never get it back.
No. She's coming into a new sanity, Kassie. It's all us who are crazy. We are the mad ones.
Okay, sure.
She saw a silver spoon in her black noble's outfit and diamond tiara in the black purple gown of the royal advisor. He approached Reginald's cottage based on where the scene fit into the story. That meant Cheerilee had missed the scenes involving Lancelot's broken lance being delivered back to the royal court, as well as the ones where the king decided who to send next. Cheerilee didn't mind having missed all these at all. They didn't interest her. She only cared about what was coming next.
Point of order. They practiced this play several times, right?
Mhm.
I think that's the implication, yes.
Okay. And Cheerilee has had this plan to murder the children
For
a
about
long
2
time.
months, yeah.
Right. So why didn't she do it when there wasn't an audience and a better chance of getting caught?
Well, she said she wanted an audience. She wanted a spectacle.
Oh, I see. No, it's okay. All right. I got that. You're quite right. Go ahead.
It's in a spectacle, and on a show. I just got that song from My Little Pony from
Yep.
Countess.
Razzle-dazzle, glitz and glam. All right. Anyway,
It's
Nora.
the greatest show! And just have a dancing peacock. Nobody watches The Masked Magician? Okay. Not The Masked
Sorry.
Magician, but the Masked Singer.
Mass singer? No.
Okay.
Mayor was very happy with the set pieces that formed the Reginald's cottage, considering them to be very nicely made. Instead of an actual closed-off building, only the back well and the left wall had been put into place, giving the audience a clean view of the building's interior. She did not want to aggrandize her own work, but she was quite proud of the way she made this all fit together through her plans and instructions.
With care and caution, my dear Dimas, the grey filly with the silver mane said. That's the only way to deal with a pony like him, if you want to harbor any hope of coming out on top, that is.
That's what she said. The white and purple maned filly nodded thoughtfully. But of course, Silvertongue, I am well aware. And of course, our case, even more thoughtfulness is required. We're not simply telling him to stand down after all.
The two ponies exchanged a grin as they walked down the path towards Reginald's front door, which was placed in the wall at the right side of his house. Of course, the wall itself hadn't really been built on stage, but the audience got the idea behind it easily enough. The two fillies nodded back and forth in front of the door until Silver Tongue finally leaned forward with a sigh and knocked on the door.
The audience could see a small door open at the back of Reginald's house as the antagonist himself stepped through into his living room, carrying a teapot which he put down onto the table in the center of the room, next to 3 cups that were already there. Visitors at this hour of night wondered who it could be. The villain said louder than was perhaps needed, the fourth wall breaking wink at the audience.
He strolled over to the door and opened it, but he left the door chained in place. Yes? He asked while peeping through the small opening he had created. I wasn't expecting any visitors today.
Forget the pleasantries, Reginald dear, the silver-maned filly said.
We know who we know you know who we are. Diamas finished the sentence for her companion.
Reginald's frown was clearly visible even to the people at the back of the theatre. Then why knock? Surely you believe I just let you in so you can apprehend me?
Pair of fillies laughed. Apprehend you? No, my dear, you have this all wrong. We don't want to apprehend you.
We want to work with you, to take care of the king, once and for all.
The fillies remained silent for a moment before Diamas added, We know you're a reasonable guy, Reginald. This will be beneficial to you as well.
Reginald closed the door and took the chain off before opening it fully. All right. Come in, he said as he walked to the table in the middle of the room. He grabbed the teapot that stood there by the ear, carefully pouring tea into the 3 cups on the table. Let's hear what you have to say, then, he said as he started sipping from one of the cups.
The other 2 gathered around the table as well, each in front of one of the 2 other cups, which they stared at with suspicion. How exactly do we know they haven't poisoned these? Silver Tongue demanded to know.
How do you know I didn't poison the tea I prepared without knowing you come? And then I'm drinking myself, Reginald mockingly replied.
The other 2 seemed to relax at this train of thought, sipping from their mugs slowly. It had been a rather long trip, and the ladies of as ladies of style, they did enjoy their daily cup of tea.
Diamas opened her mouth to start negotiations when she suddenly fell silent and started at the cups on the table. 3 cups. If you didn't know we were coming, why are there 3? She started before pressing a hoof up against her head as she took an unsteady step back from the table.
Your hubris is your undoing. Oh, stars, you did poison us. You drank. Ah! Oh, he spent many long days in the Congo building up. I don't remember what the princess brought is.
Yeah.
You did poison us, but you drank. Ah! Silver said, shaking and sank to her knees.
It was in the cups, not in the tea. Snips descried as he took another sip.
The 2 fillies are swaying about theatrically now, until Dama suddenly blurted out, Wait, my head, it was really poisoned, before both she and Silver toppled over onto the ground.
Yes, really poisoned it? Snipes said in confusion. That wasn't in the script.
He walked over to a metal ring in the floor and grabbed it between his teeth, pulling it up to reveal a trapdoor.
He dragged the perfectly still fillies to the trapdoor one at a time, throwing them into the hole before closing it again. And there they'll rot. Reginald doesn't deal with traitors. They're too treacherous. He mused as he exited the stage through the door in the back of his house. The stage light slowly growing.
By the time the curtains closed and a light above the audience went on to signal the half-show break, Cheerilee was already long gone from her seat in her prompt's corner, making her way to an unknown destination under the stage.
Destination unknown, no.
Ruby,
No, it's under the stage.